Hello, one person. You can see about an inch of my head while the camera sorts itself out. How lucky. Hey, Eugenio Gonzato. Yeah, this is what my webcam does for the first so many minutes. I think it's a driver issue. Even though this is like one of the most popular webcams, the Logitech C920. Whatever reason, the Linux driver is pretty ropey. I've never had a problem with this camera on Windows, how ironic. But for whatever reason, the Linux driver is a bit weird. And so it takes a few minutes to sort itself out. So enjoy the light show. It will sort itself out in a few minutes as I slowly reveal myself. Three people. How is everyone this Friday evening? Looking forward to the weekend. Wow, 4 people. This webcam displaying this as it is. 4 people. Wow. I must be doing something right. Hope nobody has epilepsy or something. I know you can't see me properly, but if you got any questions, this is just a relaxed Linux and computer chat. Although maybe because of my video yesterday, maybe somebody has some strong opinions on graphical user interfaces. And I've got a funny little thing to say about graphical user interfaces or graphics, but the like the video X11 server or whatever you want to call it. Before I started up this stream, something amusing happened, considering I made that video yesterday. Here in Italy, it's national holiday today. Congratulations, enjoy your national holiday. So I'm guessing, I'm going to presume, is the national holiday in Italy about the unification of Italy in like the 1800s? Is that your national holiday, or I don't know. I mean, we had something called VJ Day today, which is Victory over Japan Day. So like the end of World War II. So I don't know. I don't know if that relates to Italy as they joined the Allies a few years before, well, a couple of years before that. I don't know. I'm guessing it's unification of Italy. It's religion holiday. Oh, okay. So is it like a Saint's Day? See, look, the camera is slowly sorting itself. Look, you can see almost the whole range. So I always wonder if I do this where it changes like the focus, if that makes any difference quicker, but it never does. It just sorts itself out. As you can see, it's starting to, the 90s hacker flashing nonsense that is this webcam is slowly disappearing now, as you can see. Oh, slightly started up again. It's so strange. Makes you wonder about the driver that's been made for this camera. I don't know. I don't know if it's made by Logitech themselves or it's open software. Yeah, the camera is slowly getting. It happens every time. I don't know if it's just. I don't know if other people have this though. I don't know. You know, I've messed with the settings. One of the things I have to do when I use this camera anyway, irrespective of this, is change the like the hertz frequency down to 50 from 60, so it doesn't create like a strobe lining thing. I don't know, whatever. So I have to do that anyway, and I've gone through settings before. It doesn't make any difference to that. It just settles down like it is now. So 3 people. Thoughts on Hyperland? Okay, so my thoughts on Hyperland are this. I've never used it. However, the developer, I think, has some sensible opinions on window managers and desktop environments. And I made a video on Cosmic Desktop some time ago, which kind of echoed some of the developer of Hyperland's opinions of Cosmic Desktop. But one of the things I didn't like and don't like about Cosmic Desktop is it seems to be one huge PR exercise. And the second thing is, I know this isn't really talking about Hyperland, but anyway. And the second thing is I don't like about it is that somehow people think that having a desktop environment with window management or a tiling window manager installed is somehow desirable. The point with a tiling window manager and a desktop environment is they're not overlapping. Okay, and what I mean by that is if you need to, well, sorry, let me put it another way. Really, you want to be using one or the other. Each of them cancel each other out, and this isn't even trying to make a case for a desktop environment or a window manager in this case, but they're not overlapping. You've got to understand the whole reason of a tiling window manager is because you've got control over window placements and you're using a terminal. And if you're using a terminal, you generally, and I genuinely would advocate this, you do not need icons. Why are you overlapping why are you overlapping two contradicting designs? The desktop environment design contradicts the window manager design, and the window manager design contradicts the desktop environment. One is designed to use icons, use the WIMP stack, as we learned from my video yesterday, and the desktop environment is for the terminal. Yes, I know people have window managers with status bars, but the design of a window manager is to avoid all that bloated visual design software to get you to use your mouse and click on all this stuff. Now, yes, anybody can have their computer however they want to set it up. If they want a desktop environment with a window manager, fine. Or if they want a window manager with a desktop environment, fine. But the two are not overlapping. They contradict each other, as far as I'm concerned. So back to Hyperland. I've never used it, but Hyperland seems to me a perfectly good window manager. What I will say about window managers are that I'm not actually some kind of window manager fanatic or some kind of, let's say, a specific window manager advocate. And the reason I say it is I use i3. i3 just basically works. I'm not actually a huge fan of it. I'd prefer not to use a graphical environment. I prefer to use the TTY, the teletype terminal, with, if I need split tiles, so to speak, I'd use something like GNU Screen. That's my preferred option, but obviously that isn't always realistically possible in the kind of environment of computing that we live in, which requires graphical user interfaces. And therefore, if I'm going to use one, I'm going to use a tiling window manager. And Hyperland seems to me perfectly fine. I think it's unbelievably customizable. The one thing I'm not huge on, as you've probably seen from my videos, I don't really care about desktop writing, as it's called, posting pictures, and I like to have absolute control and customization where possible, but it's usually to take things away. Everything to me that isn't what I need, that is superfluous, doesn't stay. Particularly an obvious example of this is window animations or whatever. They're not important to me. They're just a distraction. They're superfluous to my needs. I want to get work done. And to me, the aesthetic isn't even minimal or so to speak clean. It's just focus. Okay, focus as in what am I working on? Can I get to the screen that I need to work on if I'm changing screens? Does this window manager give me shortcuts? Can I, create my own shortcuts? All the usual things you'd expect from a window manager. So the other thing is, sorry, this is again kind of going off Hyperland, but because I don't use Hyperland, I'm giving you some sort of opinion on window managers as well. One of the reasons I use, say, i3 instead of DWM, on the face of it, you would think use DWM because it's, 2,000 lines of code instead of, i3's huge lines of code, binary or whatever. The only reason I use i3 in this sense, because I've used DWM, it's perfectly fine, because I hold the principle that something as important as your desktop environment or your window manager should be a binary that's basically tested from the trusted repositories. I think it's just good practice. And so with DWM, obviously you can see the source code, you can compile it and whatever, that's no problem. But I think it's good practice to have important system, let's say, or important parts of your computer in the main repositories. And if I really wanted to be compiling software, even though obviously it takes, seconds, I'd use something like Gentoo. But so I think it's just good practice. A good practice to have something like i3, even though it's not perfect. But then I'm not even a huge advocate of something. I'm not a huge advocate of something like DWM, even though it's possibly my preferred of the two. But my actual preferred system is the TTY for using it for the desktop, which I've done plenty of videos on. So. Nikhil, hi, long time. Hi, Nikhil. If you're still here, sorry, there's only 2 people now. I guess you didn't want to hear my take on window managers, but there you go, you got it. Too bad. Now the camera's better, I've got fewer people. Well, you don't like this face? Come on. I thought that's why I had viewers on this channel. It wasn't all the Linux stuff, surely. Now it is good, I know. I don't know why. I don't know why the webcam is good after a time and bad at the beginning. I can only think it's a bad driver, bad Linux driver. And I guess the camera is so many years old now, Logitech and others. Because I'm guessing there aren't free software drivers for the Logitech camera. I'm still assuming it's Logitech making it. One of the things somebody did say once, not on here, but when I was reading up on it, was that where this is like USB 2.0, obviously the data transfer isn't the fastest, that maybe something to do with data transfer. But then if that's the case, why does it just stop? start working normally after so many minutes? Why would it take minutes to get the data transfer right? I just think it's a bad driver, unless there's some kind of mechanism in the software that compensates or compresses. I don't know. It doesn't seem likely to me that they would go to those kind of efforts for a Linux driver, but I don't know. I don't really know about the software about webcams, because who cares, right? Unless you're in webcam software design. Free people. Hi, Prosperous Potato. Have you ever heard of Hyphanet? Hyphanet. Let's have a look. Well, I've not heard of Hyphanet. The hell is this? Hyphanet. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I have heard of it once. So it's like file sharing. I think somebody mentioned this before. It's information on Freenet. Okay. Encryption of data and relaying requests. Okay. Oh, interesting. Of course, it is interesting that these kind of things do still exist, and I guess the state of computing now, these kind of file sharing not even protocols, but pieces of software are probably desirable. And you know, I don't know, the internet, the web has become, I know I've said this so many times, you're probably bored of hearing it, but I'm just going to say it briefly. The web is, and this is a cliche, I know, is a mess, right? We all know it's a mess. It's a kind of time of, you hemorrhage your time on it, doing nothing of value. Hey, maybe even being on this stream is nothing of value, but because I sort of take a stand against it, I hope I'm providing some kind of counter to it, and therefore some kind of value. I don't know. But I also, and I've covered this before, and I do intend to do a literal video on it. I'm not even an advocate of the internet. The web was good in the old days. No, the web was never good. And I did a whole section on this in a live stream before, so I'm not going to go over it. I will save that for a video, but it genuinely was never good. The people who made the web, maybe not, well, Tim Berners-Lee made the web, as kind of, but somebody who at CERN, who was a big part of that, can't think of his name, from Belgium, he basically said their design never materialized and the web is basically a mistake. HTML is basically a mistake and is a horrible, it's not even a language really, it's just markup text, but it's horrible. It was, none of this has ever been good. That's my feeling about it. There's nothing wrong with the internet. The web has never been good. It could have been better, and that's not even just doing the whole cliche of no JavaScript. It really is fundamentally flawed at design. It was the point is, it was never good as far as I'm concerned, anyway. And as far as one of the co-creators of the web is concerned as well. Slime Suchi, hello sir. What upgrades have you done to your new old ThinkPad? Okay, so I'm not going to get the new old ThinkPad out for this video, because just look at my previous video on it, which I kind of explained. So what have I done? So the first thing I did, I removed the proprietary Wi-Fi card and Bluetooth card that's like combined, and I removed the modem card, or whatever you want to call it. Not necessarily a modification, but I cleaned the fan and did a thermal paste replacement on it, and on the GPU, the embedded GPU. Now, in theory, you should maybe use a thermal pad, but I just took the old thermal pad off and put thermal paste. It seems to be okay. I will say that the thermal properties on the X60 are abysmal, are absolutely shocking, but it's what it is. After that, I replaced the proprietary Wi-Fi card, basically the Intel card, with a free software card, Atheros something design. I think look in the description, I wrote it down in there. And there was a good reason as well for that, because obviously the whole point of that 32-bit ThinkPad is to run Hyperbola, which is a free software distribution that will only work with free software Wi-Fi cards. And secondly, you cannot use a free software Wi-Fi card on a proprietary BIOS. So I had to, I didn't have to. I wanted to. I used the LibreBoot BIOS. LibreBooted the BIOS, and that LibreBooted BIOS is actually the sort of pre-microcode ones where they put microcode in it. And that's about it. Obviously, I run Hyperbola on it. I need to do a video on Hyperbola. Probably like an install video, even though there's nothing really that interesting to say about the install, but yeah, I can cover some things and I can cover some differences between, say, like Arch. But yeah, I don't think I've done anything else. Hello, I liked your OpenBSD videos. I hope you'll continue that trend. Gerberline. Yeah, so I kind of explained this before. My feeling on, say, OpenBSD is positive, and I kind of like the sensibilities of OpenBSD, becoming more and more concerned about the Linux. Well, when I say concerned about Linux, generally the development of Linux and its popular distributions, I'm becoming kind of concerned about them. On the face of it, of course, they're all open software, or free and open source software, with obviously the exception of the proprietary stuff. But the way computing is going in very recent times concerns me, and it concerns me that Linux is on some kind of, I wouldn't say decline, but it seems to me it's becoming depreciating, or the rewards are depreciating by using Linux. There are things that just have become too dominant over the core of Linux, the core utilities, the kernel, window managers even. It just seems to me the Linux desktop has become much more popular, and certain aspects of the desktop I don't really like, if that makes sense. You can just sense there's a sort of atmosphere around it that's not good. So OpenBSD I do like, however, because there's another principle going on here which is inextricably linked. Again, the general depreciation in value of using desktop Linux and other things. Although I'm technically using Linux, I'm using Hyperbola as a completely free and open source, a Libre distribution. All I literally don't run any proprietary code, and it doesn't give you the opportunity to, basically. And my computer is completely absent of proprietary code, so it wouldn't make sense for me to continue using OpenBSD, which of course does have proprietary. Now, the interesting thing with Hyperbola is they're transitioning slowly over the years. Of course, it's a smaller project to being a Hyperbola BSD. So they're actually transitioning to being a BSD distribution. Now, I was warned off this by a LibreBoot developer, that they will mess it up, but I don't know. They're not there yet. It's still a Linux distribution, but that's what they're developing to. So hey, when Hyperbola becomes a BSD distribution, you'll see I'll be using BSD. It's just not OpenBSD. Okay. Slime Suchi, you actually inspired me to get one since my R61 died yesterday. Rest in peace, your R61. Sorry to hear that. And Hyperbola still offers 32-bit support, which is quite shocking. What made you choose Hyperbola? Do you believe in only using 100% free software, no proprietary code before at all? So I kind of answered that in relation to the OpenBSD question. Rejecting all proprietary components and code, even if it comes to the cost of certain hardware compatibility or convenience. Yeah, absolutely right. So you can sort of see this in my previous video on the recent video on the ThinkPad, and in my live streams I sort of covered this. So, and like I've just mentioned. Now, as for the 32-bit support, sorry, apologize. Maybe I should have some water. As for the 32-bit support, which is quite shocking, and I see what you mean. It is kind of shocking considering how desktop Linux has really long since abandoned 32-bit. What's important about Hyperbola, and one of the reasons I chose it over Parabola, is because they make 32-bit computing first class. So that's their words, meaning that 32-bit is on an equal footing to 64-bit. So if there's a 64-bit package, there is a 32-bit package. Hyperbola doesn't ship, I don't think I'm mistaken in this, I've not seen it or heard it, does not ship exclusive 64-bit packages. It ships 64 and 32-bit packages without fail, equal to one another. And the argument is that they're maintained equally as well. That being said, what they can't account for is the quality of your experience on a 32-bit computer. Now, personally, my feeling is if you're going the completely Libre software route, using a 32-bit computer has no tangible negative effects, even down to the obvious one, web browsing and video. Maybe video, technically, it will play HD and all this kind of stuff. But my only thought is you don't really need 4K on a small laptop screen. Genuinely, why is anybody using 4K on a laptop screen? I don't know. Leave that to the cinema, really. But that's just my opinion. It depends what you're doing, maybe. Maybe you need, I don't know. I'm not even going to speculate. But definitely 64-bit is going to be faster, okay? It's just the way it is. As for web browsing, you're going to be having to make compromises with web browsing because Libre distribution that is not about using, proprietary code, including JavaScript injections that nobody knows what they're doing on the face of it. You're already hampered, okay? So web browsing in 32-bit is fine because you're only going to be web browsing very limited set of web pages, which for me doesn't matter. I don't like the web, as I've said. I know, cliche of cliches, but I genuinely don't. And I haven't felt I've been missing anything. Now, of course, on my testing computer, I'm doing this live stream, right? Which is not fully Libre software. So I've not become the absolutist in the sense that I will refuse to use any computer that has proprietary software because I just can't avoid it. I have a job that requires me to use, a Windows computer. What am I going to do? Nothing I can do to get around it, for example. So I'm not an absolutist in that way. The only exception is in personal computing, I've taken a stand. And so therefore, in that way, I am by definition. And Hyperbola keeps you honest. It won't let you, its repositories don't have proprietary software. So unless you compile something out of bounds, then it's not going to matter. So technically 32-bit is not going to be probably as speedy as your 64-bit computer. But hey, I use Window Manager, you know, and the TTY. My resources are probably like, the other thing I'd say about Hyperbola 32-bit, interestingly, the Linux kernel is 60 megabytes, not like 140 megabytes on a 64-bit with all the proprietary stuff. So it's less than half the size. The other great thing is you do get the stability with Hyperbola that you're not going to get, say, with Parabola, which probably doesn't treat the 32-bit as first class. And I wouldn't even know, because when I tried to install Parabola 32-bit, all the GPG keys for the repositories weren't updated, apparently. So I couldn't download any software or update any software. So yeah, if you're going to go 32-bit, go Hyperbola all the way for a Libre distribution. If you're going to not use a Libre distribution, there's technically Debian, but Debian Desktop ships the disgusting GNOME desktop environment, and I say that because it runs disgusting on a 32-bit computer anyway. So if you're going to run something like Debian 32-bit desktop, delete all that bloat and horrible environment and just, you know, manage something light, I guess. Hello, Iron Fist, good to see you. Nameless Monster, hello. You can stream to YouTube with FFmpeg by encoding video and audio on YouTube. Yeah, you can. So you're saying about, yes, FFmpeg. I love FFmpeg. I've edited, quote unquote, edited videos. I've made videos using FFmpeg, taking video streams, cutting audio, and that's perfectly fine. And I'll tell you why I don't do FFmpeg to YouTube is because I always remember Luke Smith having like all those problems with it, and I just I didn't bother. And I always felt like if he couldn't get it to work, I think that's why he stopped doing the streams anyway, because he couldn't get FFmpeg to play nicely with YouTube or whatever. And so I don't know. I just think, yes, I know, going with convenience, but again, this is the thing where I'm sort of an absolutist on my personal computer now, because of with the testing computer, to me, it just doesn't matter. It just really doesn't matter. Like, I'm no interest in doing that, because this isn't, in a way, this isn't my environment. Using this testing computer is like I'm just in like somebody else's environment, like I'm in somebody's Windows computer, because this isn't how I normally do things, but I do it for the sake of the live streams for convenience. So to me, therefore, it doesn't matter. If this didn't exist, of course, I'd use FFmpeg, but hey, I'm already connecting to Google, whatever. I just use the browser and that's it. But yeah, good point. Audiba, is that how you say your name? I gave up on proprietary free a long time ago, but now I'm interested. Yes, so it's like anything. You've got to make these decisions based on yourself. You know, I'm not going to tell you, hey, bro, don't use proprietary. It's bad for you. I know, obviously, it comes across in my videos. And of course, in the literal sense, I'm saying that. But hey, what if you had a business and you needed your proprietary software? It's like, hey, man, I'm so hardcore. I starved myself because I couldn't make money because I refused to log into my Shopify account. You see what I mean? I'm never going to advocate that. Well, I'm going to advocate not doing it, but I'm not going to say, you know what, for you, the right thing to do is starve yourself. I know that's a weird analogy or a weird metaphor, whatever, but you know, you've got to do what's right for you. That's what I've always advocated. What you choose to do, I might not think is the right thing, but that doesn't matter. My word isn't gospel. It is, but you know. You really went to the extreme with Libre Group. Was it purely for maximum software freedom, or out of concern Intel's proprietary management features could be used to control users? So I've said this before. I've said this before. The thing that sort of tipped me over the edge was the Horizon scandal in the United Kingdom, which I've mentioned a few times now in different videos. So the Horizon scandal was the post office, or if you're in America or whatever, the postal service provided software to what's called postmasters. So people will run the post, or the branches of post offices. So it's like a franchise. So they run like a shop, and then they've got the postal part inside the shop. Okay. And to manage the postal service they were providing, basically the financials, they had a piece of software called Horizon. And the Horizon software is made by Fujitsu, and it's proprietary software. So nothing, so extraordinary here in the sense of that, because the business world is full of proprietary software. However, this software was so bad that effectively it made up its figures half the time. Basically, it would its accounting part of it was terrible, didn't work properly. And what would happen is, at the end of the day, some people would their balance of what they owed the post office would be thousands of pounds more than what they took from customers. And what the post office said was basically, Horizon software is infallible. This is what you owe us. And at the end of every day, if you signed off the final balance, you agreed to that final balance. Now, you and I might think, well, that's crazy. Why would you do that? But you've got to understand that this is people's livelihood, and they were hugely dependent on the post office, and they didn't want to upset them. And what would happen is they would phone up Horizon. They had like a phone number if something wasn't right. And the people at Horizon effectively said, it's a bug. It will all work out. Just agree to it. And so they thought these people had their back. What actually happened was that they signed away their lives effectively by doing this, because the post office, believe this or not, in the United Kingdom has the ability to prosecute people. And I don't know what it's like in other countries, but the post office is owned by the UK government. And the UK government gave the post office the ability to generate prosecutions. So you'd assume that the only people who could generate prosecutions are the CPS. Even the police can't prosecute people. Did you know that? So United Kingdom, the police have to use something called the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service, to prosecute people. The post office don't have to go to the Crown Prosecution Service. They can prosecute people themselves. So they can get people to go to court and say that these people haven't paid their bills. And with the post office, it's not like not paying your customers or not paying, say, the electricity to some private company. You're effectively not paying the UK government. And that means they can put you in prison. And the courts did exactly that. The courts put people in prison because they didn't pay their post office bills, okay? Because Horizon Software was saying that they agreed to the final tally every day, and they owe hundreds of thousands of pounds or something. And people killed themselves over this. So basically, proprietary software kills people. Except the only thing I'd say is the real criminals in this were the courts, which curiously nobody has really mentioned. One of the most extraordinary things about this whole episode is that the only people who can actually put you in prison are the courts, not even the post office. They can take you to court, but they can't put you in prison. And the courts took the non-evidence. There wasn't even evidence presented. I'm not making this up. Horizon, the post office said Horizon was infallible. meaning that it works. And because we say it works, that is our evidence. And the court put people in prison because of that statement. And the argument for this was that there is a law, or that in theory, there's law that says that machines are infallible. So the output of machines is the truth. The problem with that interpretation is that computers are not actually machines, okay? The hardware is the machine, the physical machine, but it basically has no moving parts, okay? The actual computation is done through software over hardware, okay? Meaning that the software is not the machine, and the machine can't operate without the software. So the evidence provided would be the software, but also because the software was proprietary, and Fujitsu effectively said, you're not allowed to see the software, but hey, we say, you're not allowed to see the software. We're telling you the software is going to put you in jail. The court said, okay, basically fine. Absolutely crazy, but that is the state of computing in this country and in the world, really. So that is also why I made a sort of stand. I know it's like an empty bag of threats, but this is why I've made this stand. Also, I want people to have come to the conclusion, this sort of goes back to the Free Software Foundation, that this is like your insurance policy. The real criminals here are actually the courts. But if you need an insurance policy, use free software. It's as simple as that. Now, I know what I said, you've got to do what's right for you. I have to use proprietary software. But I want to create that principle that really the only guarantor of such, the only insurance policy you've got, especially in the crazy computing dystopia that we're moving into, is run only free software. AW, but you said it like George W. Bush. Oh, sorry. My fellow Americans, as an American, I can't believe it's taken so long to address. Yeah. I can't believe it's taken so long to address. Has switching to Linux and committed to purely free software affected your daily life habits or outlook? Has it influenced your skills, mindset, and approach to technology and problem solving? Good questions. So, well, switching to Linux, of course, has. Again, I can try and summarize this, but I've done various videos over this. And then it kind of goes back to what I've just said. With Linux, you've got a lot more control. Let me put it this way, and I've sort of said this before. If you're committing your life, right, to the usual things in life, which is work, family, whatever. Now take 24 hours out of a look at the 24 hours in your day, okay, and separate it by what you do. So say you do 8 hours of work. How much of those 8 hours are you on a computer? Probably quite a lot, if not all of it. Then look at your home life and separate how many hours out of the remaining 8 before you probably go to bed do you use on a computer, including a mobile phone? Probably quite a lot, meaning that a large part of your waking life is using a computer. And if you're spending a large part of your waking life using a computer, why do you want to suffer? Meaning, does anybody really believe, unless they know better? Well, let me put it this way. Does anybody really believe, if they've used, say, Linux, that going back to using Windows is going to make a huge part of their day, and therefore a huge part of their life, any better? Or is it going to make their life incredibly frustrating and infuriating? I would say the latter. And that's why I would never go back to using that where possible. because you have no options. Well, you do, but you don't. We all know this. So you don't like the Windows desktop environment? Tough. You don't like the, way they handle their window management? Tough. You don't like this, most of the software on there is proprietary and by standard? Tough. You don't like that you can't uninstall all of these Microsoft programs that you don't want to use? Tough. You don't like that Microsoft take all this telemetry without you knowing? Tough. You don't like the fact that you can't use the command line in any meaningful way? Tough. Do you see what I mean? It's just hellscape, and it's getting worse. You don't like that it idles at 8 to 9 gigabytes? Tough. You don't have any choice. So why would you want to go back to that? Why would you want to spend the 8+ hours of your working day if you could avoid it doing that? And certainly outside of that, why would you want to spend any more hours suffering that? That's a sort of an elaborate way of saying that. Has it influenced your skills, mindset, or approach to technology problem solving? Well, just look at my videos. I think that's sort of self-explanatory. The kind of things that I do are about customization and control, really. Trying to think how to summarize it. Again, it sort of goes into what I've been saying. It's about having what's right for you. Like I said earlier, I'm not literally saying don't use a desktop environment. I'll make all the arguments in the world why you shouldn't. But the point is, you don't get the option to choose in Windows. That's what you get. Yes, there's hacks around it and all this, but it's just crazy situation we live in that you'd have to do that. Would spend a while doing Windows updates if I went back. Yeah, it'd be a lot of updates. I wrote a PowerShell script at my work the other day, and logical operators like and or didn't work. So infuriating. Really? PowerShell don't even let you do and or. Crazy. They must have some horrible No, I know it's funny because I know, like, in the programming world, people don't like using, say, shell or bash for anything more than basic shell scripting, which is fine because that's what it's designed for, really. But it's funny how they hate the syntax. I actually felt the syntax is quite nice, but again, it depends what you're using it for. I guess if you're trying to, well, let me put it this way: if you're trying to use shell or bash to do like bespoke memory management or something and assign pointers or whatever, then it's going to be a pretty miserable existence because that's not what it's there for. And, it's not really object orientated programming and all this kind of stuff. So, but yeah, PowerShell. That's the kind of standard you get with Microsoft. I know some people really like PowerShell, but again, it's just sort of laughable that they went. It's laughable that they went through all these contortions, I think, to have a shell that's sort of Unix-like. I can't even remember. But hi, James. Hi, Ahmed. I'm going on vacation tomorrow. A week without internet, without computers, without Linux. Good for you. Sounds good. Enjoy your week. Where are you going? Anywhere nice? What's your typing speed? Well, I wouldn't say my typing speed is anything special, but what my typing speed is touch typing. So all about the home row. That's more important to me than the speed. So it's just QWERTY. I don't do Dvorak or anything like that. I find that that's a kind of limit of speed I need. Maybe if I was on, like, I don't know, it'd be interesting to maybe do Dvorak or Colmac or whatever it's called, but I don't feel I need to go any faster, really. QWERTY just seems to be a nice pace for my thinking and doing, but I might feel differently. But as long as I'm using the home row, for me, that's the most important thing. Touch typing. Best thing I ever did with a computer, except for maybe Linux. I don't know. Nino Hedy? I think PowerShell has logical operators, but they work differently. Yeah, that's my assumption. But it'd be interesting to see what the operators look like. Maybe I'll have to have a look. Alexandria, Egypt. Nice. You'll be by the coast. There also isn't a cat or tail command. It's get content and get content tail in case sensitive. Oh, that sounds horrific. PowerShell probably uses something else instead of and or. Yeah. What is your job, James, if I can ask? You can ask. It's not very exciting. It's basically warehouse coordination. So it's like a lot of computer stuff. Also, other stuff where I'm just sort of in the warehouse coordinating things. It's like a logistics job. It's not very exciting, but it's fine. I don't necessarily think much of it. It's fine. So basically what I'm saying is it's not a hugely technical job. Some of the jobs I've had in the past are more technical. Technically, I was an engineer once, trainee engineer. But I think I covered that in a video before. But yeah, at the moment, nothing too exciting. FreeDOS. What is your, actually, I'm going to ask you, what is your job? Eugenio, if you don't mind my asking. FreeDOS is the best Windows. In fact, everybody type in what your job is. Why not? If you want to. FreeDOS is the best Windows. Unironically, I think it probably is. And I've never even used it. It just sounds better than whatever Windows is. Better than PowerShell. Yeah. Proper command line, right? So I'm guessing FreeDOS is I guess it comes out of DOS. And obviously that's pre-Windows 1.0, and FreeDOS is free software DOS, right? I'm guessing. Do you work in corporate or freelancer? I guess it's technically corporate, as in I work for a company and I'm not freelancing. You know, to pronounce my last name properly, D in my last name is pronounced in the same way you pronounce letter G in the alphabet. Nino Hedgie. Okay. Nino Hedgie. Yes, there is and or not, but they can only be used in the same contacts as any F and Z in Bash. Okay. Not to chain different commands together. Oh, okay. So am I right in thinking prosperous potato? You've got to put it in. You got to put it in brackets, right? So something like this. So something like this, okay? So if you had say what's that, like F wasn't it? F file something hello.txt or say home James hello.txt equals hello. Then echo hello or exit, right? Something like that, rather than you have to run the test, right? Because if you did oh no, because that's the same thing. Otherwise, if you had if file and .txt equals whatever, and then yeah. I don't know. Is that have I got that right? Yeah, it's like an if statement, for example. Not to change things. I'm mechanical design. Okay, nice. Do you wonder why there are so many chippies in your live chat? Oh, clippies. So I'm, as you can probably guess, I don't really follow internet culture much. But yeah, isn't there like this whole thing with like clippies? You see it all over YouTube. People have got it as their icon. Yeah. FreeDOS was first OS I ever used, but I used it with one of the shells. Not sure which one, but I believe it was Commander because I need to use NC command to activate it. NC command. I could try and remember NC command anyway. Yes, like for an if statement, for example, it's in the test itself. If variable 1 equals value 1 and variable 2 equals value 2, PowerShell. If variable equals value 1, then or and equals okay. How are we doing for time? I've probably got another 10 or so minutes on here, maybe a bit longer. So if you've got any more questions, so it's a nice way to start off the Friday, little computer Linux chat. Why start off? No, not to start off a Friday, start off the weekend. What I'm talking about. Questions. Now you drop too much knowledge for that. Okay, I'm not sure what that means. Drop too much knowledge. Do you use VMs? I'm trying to set up KVMQ menu. It's driving me mad. Yep. Well, if you look at most of my videos, I'm using KVM QEMU. It's driving. I use those. Yeah. So my question is, what system are you? What system you're using, because I think you can even get KVM QEMU on Windows. Are you using Windows or Linux? I presume you're using Linux. Arch Hyperland, okay. So here's what you need to do. I'll tell you what, I'll just get the videos. I would just use this video I'm just going to get you. Right. That's oh, why is it done that? There we go. If you go on that video link, that will give you Mental Outlaw setting up KVM QEMU, and that should just literally follow the instructions he says. If that doesn't work, there is another one. There's this one as well. That's DistroTube. I can't remember if Mental Outlaw covers the virt-manager side of things, because virt-manager just makes it easy to handle in that way. I know it's ironic because I'm talking about command line, but again, because I'm using it on my testing machine, I don't need to use the command line, or it doesn't matter to me to use the command line. But if I needed to, I would. James, do you see RISC-V, RISC-V as a viable option, open standard for personal computers in the future, or x86 remain the only choice? Well, I think the interesting thing with RISC-V is, hasn't it really just been going forever, in the sense that, I don't know, it's always like the promise of it, but the reality is just different, because one way or another, people will just always use the architecture that is mass produced at the supermarket or the retailer. And that's, of course, been x86 because of Intel and AMD, right? Now, I know ARM, see if I can get focus again. Now, I know obviously that ARM is in the Apple computers now. So I know it's technically possible that RISC-V will become popular, but again, it's just one of those things. It's like you always hear about it, and then does it ever really happen? You know, there's like a tease of, oh, you know, this distribution is now supports RISC-V, but you know, it's always seen, like I was saying earlier with Hyperbola, you know, 32-bit is seen as first class, right? All the packages are available in 32-bit that are available in 64-bit. The thing with RISC-V is you're probably not going to find that. You're going to find missing packages. I'm guessing there might be some distributions that treat RISC-V as first class. And again, apart from maybe China, if it's like designed, the RISC-V chips are designed in China, who's going to be selling them? Are you going to order them online? I don't know. I just don't see it becoming the default, because unless Intel start making it as their default, I don't see it. Linus Torvalds isn't happy with RISC-V. He said that they're making the same mistakes other instruction set architects. Yeah, I did sort of hear about that. Okay, another 5 minutes, guys. What do you think about Raspberry Pis? I used to think they're a good thing, and maybe they still are. However, Chris Occhipinti made a video about them. Basically said they're completely pointless for most people, and that really save your money and just literally buy a laptop and use that as some sort of, I don't know, IoT device server, or depends what you're using it for. Basically, that Raspberry Pis are overpriced. I don't know, and that maybe use like what did he call it? There's like even smaller like devices that you can use like IoT. So I don't know. I don't use these things. I don't really know. On the face of it, I thought Raspberry Pi is probably a good idea, but you can buy cheap laptops now with a lot of power, and you get a full keyboard and a screen. If you need a concealed computer, so to speak, when I say concealed, I mean like a IoT device that you have to put somewhere to do something specific, maybe Raspberry Pis are overpriced and not necessary. I don't know. He also called them out for garbage code, like he said. All right. RISC-V might become viable option. In fact, it's necessary to break down Intel and AMD duopoly. Yes, it is. But how are you going to get companies like AMD and Intel particularly, whose whole trade is on the obfuscation of their design, of their chip designs, or their chips, meaning that I think RISC-V is an open standard. I don't actually know. I'm assuming certain things here. I never truly looked into it. I just at a surface level. If you use a source-based distro, I can't really see it being an issue since you can compile it yourself. What's this in relation to? Oh, and like proprietary stuff. Well, I mean, oh, okay. I see what you mean. Yeah. I mean, I don't doubt that. That's probably absolutely true. My only thing with compiling is, like a lot of people, I just want to install the binary, as in, I'm happy to have a trusted distribution that tests the packages, provide the binaries, and I can install them in seconds or minutes rather than hours compiling. Technically, I've got compiled software for stuff that doesn't have binaries and whatever that I really need, but that's why I don't use Gentoo, because I don't know, I've got to have a limit somewhere. The irony is with Hyperbola is their whole thing is about control of the Libre software. So really, you shouldn't be installing out of bounds. You should be using the official binary package manager of Libre only software. So I don't know. Good point, though. I mean, arguably, the argument has always been made that if you just have the source code, then it's basically free software. I wish I had one of those monster Threadripper CPUs so I can compile Gentoo in 1 minute. Yeah. That's a good point. But, well, this is the other thing. I'd never use a modern laptop in the sense of modern being the things they design now. They're insufferable. Whenever I see a laptop and the whole thing is soldered together, or you can't replace a battery, you can't get to the RAM, can't get to the CPU, you've effectively got proprietary hardware, so to speak, you know, as in you're not allowed to touch anything because it's all just soldered together, you know, melded together in one huge hot mess that if it breaks, you're going to have to send off to the company that manufactures it. And the real essence of that is it's probably just going to be cheaper to replace the laptop, which is what they're hoping for, or charge you an extortionate amount of money for repair on an older computer. Compiled Gentoo on a Threadripper, craziest thing ever. Yeah, I vaguely remember his Gentoo videos back in the day. I vaguely remember him compiling, yeah. All right, guys, I'm going to leave it there. So thank you very much for joining the live stream. Nice, relaxed live stream on the Friday. Lots of good questions. I always have very good questions on this channel. I can't speak for other channels, but I will say, I don't think, even though on a larger Linux channel, that even if you filtered out, say, like 5%, that the 5% would be quality, whereas I feel like a good 50 to 60% of like my comments, or actually no more than that. My recent video, in fact, I thought every comment was good, even if I didn't literally agree. So actually, most of the time, I get really good comments from people who are actually usually a lot smarter than me, and I'm not just blowing smoke, because I'm not a developer. I program. I technically can program. Obviously, but I would say I'm more about design principles and attitudes than anything else. So there we go. Anyway, thanks again, guys, and have a good weekend. Enjoy your holiday, Ahmed. I'm sure it'll be nice. I'll leave it there. See you guys later. Thanks a lot.